Good evening, everybody. So here we are, it's the 23rd of March 2021. I thought it would be a good idea tonight to give you some general tips and information rather than sort of a specific topic on one just particular sort of health concern. So I thought I'd just start sort of reflecting on where we are. You know, I don't need me to say it's been a tough year. 23rd of March today, 1 year since the start of lockdown last year, and here we are in a third lockdown and we're still in it. And it's been a really tough year and we shouldn't beat ourselves up about it. But as we approach spring, this is often the time we'll start thinking about, wish I could lose a few pounds, I wish I had a bit more energy. So I thought, well, often we just don't know where to start. So I thought tonight I would give you 10 straightforward steps to take that just sort of nudge you in the right direction. And when you start to do these things without making things complicated, it can sort of help you start to turn a corner. It can start to give you a bit more energy. It can make you feel less stressed, less anxious, less tired, and make you want to do the next steps. So this is in no particular order at all. And I think a lot of these, the sort of things that I would go through with my clients anyway, possibly in more detail than I'm going to go through with you tonight. And they'd be more personalised with my clients. But so these are very general, but there are easy things that you can all apply. And I'm sure you'll always get something from this tonight that you think, yeah, I'm not doing that. And that's something that I could go and put in place tomorrow. Now, my very first live, which I did in January 2020, was all about setting new habits. And so as we go through this, don't expect to be able to do all these things all in one go. And think, oh my God, I just can't do it. Just sort of maybe you want to write a note of all these 10 things and then just start to do small little steps. And it's all the small incremental steps that we make that just start to help us to make the steps in the right direction. And over time, we can reinforce these things and do more of them. And those small steps become bigger steps and you can change more and more things. Easier said than done, but this is what I think you can start with. And as I said, no particular order, and just pick one thing at a time. So first thing, eat 3 main meals. Try and make a point of getting up and having breakfast. Very often we rush around, we rush out the door. We may be rushing, getting children ready for school, ready to start a day if we're working from home. And we skip breakfast, and it's often a false economy. I'm talking about the small steps here, things that you can do. So I would say, to begin with, have breakfast. Make sure you have a good breakfast, you have a good lunch, and you have a good dinner. Because when we start to have main meals and 3 main meals and some of the other things I'll go on to talk about, it can help you avoid the snacking. It can help you avoid that mid-morning slump or mid-afternoon slump and have you reaching for the biscuits, the bar of chocolate, the package of crisps, the things that you don't really want to eat, but it gets to the point where you just want to grab something. So step 1, start to eat 3 main meals a day and make sure they're, reasonably substantial. Step 2, think about your hydrating fluids. And are your fluids hydrating ones, or are they your sort of teas and coffees, which are stimulants and potentially could be dehydrating to the body? Stimulants create a stress response, so you don't have too many of those. And when you think about hydration, you want to be aiming for roughly 2 litres of fluid a day. And the bulk of that, it's about 8 glasses really, 8 cups, glasses. And the bulk of those you want to be from hydrating sources. Now your hydrating sources are water, you could have sparkling water, you could have very diluted cordial, it could be herbal teas, it could be fruit teas. But what I'd like you to think about is stopping and reflecting on how many cups of tea and coffee you have a day. And I would include your decaf there because there's a lot of chemicals involved in removing the caffeine. There's other chemicals in tea and coffee anyway. So stop and think, how many teas and coffees do you have a day? And start to reduce that down by 1 cup a day. Don't go cold turkey, just start reducing that down by 1 cup a day, but try and ensure that your overall fluid intake is 2 litres. You'll feel remarkably better when you cut down on tea and coffee and you up your hydrating fluid intake. It's a really simple thing to do, but you will feel better as a result of doing that. It can help your hydration. It reduces the stress response through the stimulants of tea and coffee. It can help your digestion, and it can certainly help your energy. So make that simple step as well. Number 3 on my list is plan, plan, plan. And what I mean by that is take a few moments at some point in your week to try and think ahead and plan your meals. Even if it's only a rough idea of what you're going to do. Now, you may have things in the freezer that you've cooked before and you could take out. And going forward, you could be cooking things and make extra that can go in the freezer. So you've got quick and easy things that you can fall back on another time, because it doesn't always have to be freshly cooked food all the time. But try and think about what your week ahead looks like, and can you plan a little bit? Meals do not have to be complicated. I talk about doing really simple things like wrapping a piece of fish in tin foil and cooking a load of vegetables with it, so it doesn't have to be complicated. One meal could be having an omelette. You could be opening a tin of sardines if you love them and having them with a salad or some other vegetables. So it doesn't have to be complicated, but you do need to spend a bit of time planning. And if you can start to get into the habit of planning, then it stops you rushing and eating the wrong things, you know, grabbing a pizza that might be in your freezer or something like that. So planning, plan. Try and spend a little time to plan your week ahead. And then you've got to shop for it. You've got to start cooking. And when you start to do this, I also want you to spend time to try and eat a little bit more slowly. So it's giving yourself permission to spend time on doing these things, and don't put it at the bottom of the priority list. Of course, you can't have every day when it's going to be smooth and plain sailing. You're going to have some days that are busier than others. So even if it's on a 70-30 rule, 80-20 Pareto rule, where you try and get most of your meals planned, and so some of them maybe not quite so good, but you have to plan, because if you don't plan, you're not going to have the right ingredients in the house. But that doesn't mean you're cooking fancy meals. It can be very, very simple, but you've got to have the right food in the house in the first place. Fourth step, your fourth tip, your fourth step is put protein in every meal. I've said this many times before, but protein increases what I call satiety and fullness. When you include protein in every meal, it stops you wanting to reach for snacks between meal. It keeps you fuller for longer, it'll keep your blood sugar levels more stable, and it will stop you reaching for those snacks. And roughly, you want your protein to be about 1/3 of your plate. So if you're having a cereal for breakfast, add some nuts and seeds to it. Lunchtime, you could be, as I said, opening a tin of fish. You could have some hard-boiled eggs that you've cooked in advance, so you've got those ready, or you could quickly scramble some eggs, or, like I said, make an omelette. Some chicken slices, it might be cottage cheese, it's whatever takes your fancy, but think about the protein. Your proteins are your eggs, your lentils, your pulses, your fish, your meat, your tofu. Those are your main sources of protein. So, you know, think about your nuts and seeds. You've got to think about, have you got protein in that meal? And it should be roughly 1/3 of the portion of your meal should be protein, and we underestimate it, or we don't actually include protein at all. So it will keep you fuller for longer, it will stop you snacking, it will help stabilize your blood sugar, it will help to keep your energy more stable. Can you see when you start to do these things and your energy level starts to get more stable, it'll help you turn a corner to do some of the other things and make the other steps that you want to take. Step 5, think about reducing your reliance on wheat stroke gluten. Now, it's mainly the wheat, but for some people it could be more of the gluten. But we tend to have it in far too many meals. You know, we'll have toast, we'll have pasta, we might have a biscuit, a piece of cake, we'll have a sandwich. The pasta, I've probably said, we might have it in a pizza. We want to reduce our reliance on it. It's not that I think it can't have a place in people's meals. It's just that it can be a little bit challenging on the digestive system. It can make people feel a bit sluggish. It can make people feel a little bit sleepy. So just reduce the amount of times you're eating it on a daily basis. Can you go without it on certain days? So some of the alternatives you could think about: if you like to have a little bit of noodles or pasta, you can get buckwheat noodles. Buckwheat is not wheat, so it's a different type of grain and there's no gluten in it. You can get lentil, chickpea type pastas. You might decide to cook with lentils or pulses like chickpeas and use those in place of some other sorts of starchy carbohydrate like pasta on your plate. Instead of having bread or crackers, maybe try some oat cakes. Oat cakes don't really contain a significant amount of gluten, and they certainly don't contain wheat. Maybe think about having sweet potato in place of pasta with a meal. And some people, you might like to try this. You can slice sweet potato and you can toast it, or you can put it in the oven in slices and it comes out sort of like a toast, and it could form the basis of replacing bread or toast with a meal. And for breakfast, instead of eating wheat-based cereal, maybe try something like a porridge, or soaked overnight oats would be a great alternative as well. So think about reducing your wheat and gluten. So my sixth tip is, following on from that, is reducing the amount of dairy you have. Similarly to the wheat gluten, for some people, dairy can be challenging on the digestive tract. And I also find for people that it's quite mucus forming, creates a lot of mucus in the body. That can make the lymphatic system sluggish. It can make you feel sluggish and congested and not great overall. So not that you have to take it out, but stop and think, if you're having cereal, do you need a cow's milk dairy with your meal? Could you switch it to a nut milk, a coconut milk, hemp milk with your cereal? If you're having cheese, you may want to try some cow's milk alternative. I love certain sheep's milk cheeses like Manchego, Ozo Orate, I'm probably pronouncing that completely wrong. So maybe I like mild goat's cheese. I find them more easily digested, I find them easily more tolerated for me. Instead of yogurt, cow's milk yogurt, try a coconut milk yogurt. You can even get almond milk yogurt now. They're just nice alternatives to try and just reduce your reliance on having so much dairy in the diet. Step 7 is to start increasing your vegetables and your salad vegetables in your diet. Have another portion at lunchtime, increase your portions with dinner. You know, in an ideal world, we'd be having 10 portions of vegetables every day with a little bit of fruit included in that. But the bulk of this should be our vegetables and not so much of the fruit. So can you think about having a side salad at lunchtime? If you were to have an omelette for breakfast, could you add some vegetables to it? You know, you could add some mushrooms and peppers and courgettes to an omelette, and that way you're getting extra vegetables in your meal. Little side salad at lunchtime. If you whatever you're cooking the meal in your dinner, could you add some extra vegetables to it? Could you stir fry some vegetables? Could you roast vegetables? You just chuck a whole load in the oven. I know you've got to chop them, but you can stick them in the oven. Little bit of olive oil, maybe add some dried or fresh herbs. Pop them in the oven for 40 minutes. And actually, when you roast them, you actually can then consume far more than you would if you, say, had a salad or you just steamed them. They've softened a lot more. They're more easily digestible. So start to think about how you can up your vegetable intake. My 8th tip, we're now moving away from nutrition tips, but in terms of steps towards better health, can you get out and do a walk for 30 minutes every single day, or short walk. Okay, some days you may not have the time, but at least getting some exercise. You know, it's getting warmer, it's getting lighter, it's making it much easier for us to try and fit this into our day. But to get off our backsides, I've been very guilty of that today, but I have been working. But to, you know, to get up and get out and to get walking and get out with nature and get the fresh air. You know, it could be at the start of the day, the end of the day, the middle of the day, just at any point, and it will reinvigorate you. Maybe split it into 2 15-minute walks or longer if you've got the time. It's calming, it's stress relieving. It can help to clear your head. If you've got something troubling you, it gives you a chance to mull things over in your mind. Do some deep breathing when you're walking, and usually when you get back, you'll feel a lot calmer. You'll feel invigorated but calm, and ready to get on with your day. So, you know, just some simple walking. It doesn't need to be crazy exercise. Step 9. Trying to have some alcohol-free days. Now, you know, I think for a lot of people through lockdowns, it's been very easy to slip into the habits, and in the winter to sit down at night with a glass of wine. I'm not perfect. I don't do it every night, but you know, it's easy to get into those habits. That's why I started off by saying about trying to reset habits, and new habits can be created. So stop to try and think, you know, before you go and reach that glass of wine, you know, maybe have a cordial, maybe get some nice cordial, top it up with some sparkling water, add a little bit of ice to it, make a nice long drink out of it, maybe even put it into a wine glass so it's more like having a glass of wine. Maybe just adding sparkling water and a squeeze of lemon or some lemon slices, just something to make it interesting, whether it's mint or cucumber or something else like that. You may not need to do that, and it may not be that difficult, but when you're sort of in the habit of it's wine time or the gin and tonic time, to just say, no, I'm going to go and do this instead, and you've got the drink in your hand and you're sipping it, takes away that desire, because a lot of this is habit forming and it's trying to set a new habit. So trying to have quite a few, if you can, alcohol-free nights. You know, if you can get to the point where it's just maybe a midweek drink or maybe just a weekend drink. So just trying to reduce the alcohol intake. You know, alcohol is stress forming. It doesn't help us sleep well. It upsets blood sugar. It'll contribute to weight gain. You know, people who drink on a daily basis and cut it out completely usually notice they start to lose weight just by doing that and nothing else. But it will make you feel 10 times better when we can start to try and ditch the alcohol on certain nights of the week. And my final tip is going to bed a little bit earlier. I think the temptation now, it's getting lighter, maybe to stay up a bit later, but I think trying to get into habits. And if you're the sort of person who finds yourself going to bed a bit later than you want to, but you wake up early or you have to be up early for whatever reason, trying to go to bed maybe half an hour earlier, or trying to start an evening routine and a wind down routine a little bit earlier to get yourself organised, settled for bed, trying to unwind so you can get to sleep when you want to go to sleep. Of course, sleep is another whole big topic, but trying to think about how can I maximise my sleep. And if you get a disturbed night, maybe just trying to, okay, I'm going to give myself permission to go to bed at 9:30. Maybe you already do that. Maybe you need to bring it forward to 9 o'clock. There's no right or wrong. Nobody says we have to be up till 10 or 11 o'clock at night. You do whatever is right for you. So if you wake in the night or you wake early in the morning, start to go to bed that little bit earlier to give yourself to maximize the amount of sleep that you can get. So those are my 10 easy steps to start to, rethink that. It's not rocket science, any of that I've just said, and you'd have heard me say most of this, if not all of this, before on various talks that I've done. But it's just simple little things, and sometimes we just need those little reminders to go, yeah, I know I've sort of slipped off doing those things. Yeah, I can go away. I can start to do that tomorrow, or I can start to put in place those new habits. If you've not been writing down what I've said, I'll be saving this. You can rewatch this in my in my Facebook group because I'll record it there. Of course, it will be uploaded in the next week or so to my YouTube channel, Peyton Principles Natural Health, if you don't catch it there. So I hope you found that useful. If you've got any other tips that you think I missed or you think anybody else would think would be helpful to know, then by all means add it as a comment, because you know, they're just 10 steps that I think would be helpful, but you may have other things that you think could be really helpful that you've tried and other people might think is useful. So, you know, by all means add that yourself. So thanks for watching. There's a few people watching tonight. That's great to see. So thank you for your time. And I think I'm going to carry on Friday with my nutrition in the news if I think it's helpful for people. So I will be back on Friday at 1 o'clock for a sort of quick roundup and catch up. Otherwise, I'll be back next Tuesday for my next topic. Have a lovely evening, everybody. Thank you for your time. Bye.